Hi everyone. So in this video we are going to discuss the center-state relation. If you remember, this discussion on center-state relation we had started from the previous video itself. One video on the center-state relation in which we covered the legislative relation, what kind of legislative relationship that center and state does cover. So center-state relation has been divided into three pillars: legislative, executive, alternatively executive relationship between the center and state is also referred as administrative relationship between the center and state, and the third kind of relation or the third pillar of the center and state relationship is financial relation. So in the first video, center state legislative affair we already have discussed. In this video we are going to discuss center state administrative relation, what kind of or executive relation as so you can refer as, and the third video will be dedicating on center state financial relation. So let us see first of all that what is going to be scope of, as I already told you that this video is going to be the second video in series of our discussion on center state relation. Prior to this we already have covered all the chapters, almost all the chapters of the Lakshmikant. The center state relation we had taken in last, and that's why we are discussing it now. So legislative, after discussing the introductory in the first video that was of 1 hour around, right? So we discussed the introductory section of that what is the center state relation, why this center state relation is important, right? So that we discussed. Then in the second in the first video itself we discussed the legislative relations between the center and state spanning from article 245 to article 255, right? That has been contained in part 11 of Indian Constitution. So this separation, this information is also very important, that center state legislative relation and executive relation has been contained in part 11 of Indian Constitution, but center state financial relation has been contained in part 12 of Indian Constitution. So this part is already done. This part we are supposed to discuss in this video, that is administrative relation between center and state spanning from article 256 to article 263. However, although center state administrative relation or the executive relation, which is alternatively called, has been mentioned in this article 256 to article 263, but all the articles are not going to be very important as far as center state administrative relation is concerned, because this article 256, 257 and 258 as part of our discussion on center state administrative relation will be discussing. As far as 259 is concerned, that has been repealed. 260, that is not important, not so important. So these two articles we will not be discussing. As far as other three articles, that is article 261, article 262 and article 263 is concerned, that again those three articles, although that is important for center state administrative relation or center state executive relation, but again these three articles as well we will not be discussing, because if you remember when we were discussing this interstate council, the interstate, what are the mechanisms that Indian Constitution has evolved, or what are the provisions in Indian Constitution through which interstate communication happens or interstate conflict resolution happens. So in that chapter we had discussed what is this interstate council that has been or that is constituted through this article 26. I hope you already would be knowing that what is this interstate council. If you have not watched that lecture on the interstate council, I hope that you will go to that lecture, that video, or you can refer to the traditional book and you can read about this interstate council. I'll expect that you will not expect me to deliver this lecture on interstate council again. So this chapter we already have discussed, although again as I already told you that although this is a part, this article is part of center state administrative relation, but we are not discussing since we already have discussed. Then in the same chapter under article 262, if you remember, again we had discussed this interstate what are the mechanism that Indian Constitution. So Indian Constitution has empowered Parliament to constitute interstate river water dispute mechanism. If there is any dispute arising between two riparian state, if there are two state or three state through which a common river passes and there is water dispute on the river sharing or river water sharing, so in that kind of dispute, if Parliament wants, then Parliament can set up what you call a tribunal. It can establish a tribunal. So this portion as well we have discussed. Then we discussed this article 268 that was talking about full faith and credit clause, that a law when made by a state like Maharashtra, and this point we have discussed in the previous chapter itself when we were discussing this article, previous video itself when we were discussing this article 245, where we were talking about that the parliament will be making law for the whole of the India, and the states, various state will be making legislation for that particular state. So there I had raised this point on full faith and the credit clause that has been dealt in article 261, and there again I had raised this point that we have discussed this full faith and the credit clause in into interstate council chapter. So there we had discussed that, hey, it does not matter if Maharashtra is making a law to be operationalized in their state only, even then that law will have recognition in the other state like Bihar or Haryana or any other state. So it does not matter whether the law has been or legislation has been designed by the state legislature of Maharashtra, Bihar, UP or Gujarat or so on, it will be recognized across the state, and that's why it is called full faith, and the means faith will be extended to all the acts, all the legislation, all the public acts, all the records maintained by the judiciary. So when it is talking about records, it is talking about this records held by or the judgments passed by various kind of lower judiciary that will have recognition in the other state judiciary as well. You already would be knowing that we are, in terms of judiciary, we are following this integrated model of judiciary, right. So this article, these three articles, that is article 261, article 262, article 263, since we already have discussed, so there is no point of duplication of effort in this chapter itself. So these three articles, although it is part of administrative center state administrative relation, but we will not be discussing. As far as article 259 is concerned, since it has already been repealed, right, so that as well we will not be discussing. As far as article 260 is concerned, article 260 primarily deals with the jurisdiction of union in relation to the territory outside the India. Any foreign territory, if they want that a law, there is, suppose there is an island or a newly emerged island and there are 1000 people or 2000 or 5000, or even if it is not a newly emerged island, suppose there was there is in Indian Ocean region, there is island which was governing itself through a government, and that government happened to be some autocratic government. Now democracy, the people of this island want democracy to be established. They have overthrown their autocratic leader, and in the meantime, since they are not equipped to have this democracy, there are absence of institutions of the democracy like Election Commission of India, and the administrative system on the democratic lines is not well developed, they are not well equipped. So they can request Indian state, Indian parliament that, hey India, for the next 10 years or next 15 years, can you develop our these kind of democratic institution until we are equipped, until we are capacitated. So that has been dealt, the jurisdiction of union in relation to the territories outside India. But since this is not important for center state relations, so again this article as well 260 we will not be discussing. So I hope these 6 articles, that is 5 articles, that is 3 plus 2, will not be discussing in this video, and the logic has been communicated to you. So what all articles we will be discussing in this particular video? So we will be discussing this article 256, 257 and article 258, right. So these 3 articles 256, 257 and 258 that we will be discussing. So let us start our discussion on this article 256, 257 and 258. But before discussing this center state administrative relation, or before discussing this center state executive relation, right, you will have to understand the difference, this basic difference. Just a moment. The basic difference between legislation, what is this legislation, and execution, because until and unless you will not understand the difference between legislation and execution, you will not be able to understand the difference between center state legislative relation and the center state executive relation. So see, legislation, although you already because we already have covered all of the Indian polity, so you already would have an idea. But for those who are watching this video for the very first time, or those who are not very aware of the polity, for those, let me tell you that what is this legislation. So legislation is, see, in India there are 2 primary institutions that is indulged into job of making legislation. Legislation is what? Law making job. Law making job. What are the stages involved in the law making? Law is designed by the cabinet, or it can be designed by the private members like MLAs and MP. Once it has been designed, then it will be produced into any of the houses. If I talk about at the state level, so which two institutions I was talking about, which two institutions are indulged into law making? So you have these state legislatures, right? When I am saying state legislature, I am talking about this assembly, and few of the state you do have this legislative councils as well. So these agencies, and at the union level, at the state level, you have this assembly and the legislative council that is indulged into law making. And then at the union level, what you do have is parliament. A parliament does have these two parts, that is RS and LS. You can also include this president as part of parliament, right? So any of the law, so how the law or the legislations are designed. So first of all, what are the process in legislation? So first of all, it will be designed, it will be drafted, right? It may be drafted. Suppose member of parliament at the union level, suppose Shashi Tharoor, he is not part of the government. So there can be two ways of designing this law. It can be designed either by any particular party, which may not be power, although most of the bills that is passed by the parliament, it is passed, or it is first of all presented by the cabinet. But that is not something that is the logic. A draft of a bill, a particular bill, can be presented even by the private member who is not part of the cabinet. Although 90% or 95% of the bill that is passed by the parliament, that is presented primarily by the cabinet. But as I already told you, that this is not the rule. If any member of parliament, or if member of legislative assembly, assembly member, any MLA wants to a law to be proposed, then she does have power. It's just that that particular bill that he or she will be presenting into the parliament or the assembly, that particular bill will be called private member bill. I hope, because we already have covered this parliamentary section as well, so you would be knowing the difference between the government bill and the private member bill. So that differentiation I am not getting into, because that will extend our lecture unnecessarily. I will expect that you will already have an understanding over the basics. So first it will be designed, a law will be designed, then it will be presented into one of the house. If it is if it is supposed to be presented in state, and the state does have only one house, that is assembly, so it will be presented into the assembly. It will go through the stages of discussion. If need be, then it can be sent to the committee, select committee, joint committee, this kind of committee. What is this committee system? What is the importance of committee system? Again, we have discussed into the parliamentary section and the state legislature section. So that again we will not be discussing. Once that bill has been thoroughly discussed, what are the different stages? Again, that we already have discussed. First reading, second reading, into the stages of various kind of stages of bill. So that again we are not first reading, second reading, third, we are not getting into that. Once it has been thoroughly discussed, thereafter there will be voting. If any amendment has to be moved, then amendment will be moved depending on the numbers that the amendment, or depending on the people supporting the amendment, it will be decided whether that amendment has to be passed or not to be passed. Finally it will be voted, the bill will be voted, and it will either pass or fail. If it has been passed at the state level, it will be sent to the governor. Then there are under article 200 and 201, there are various options that the governor does have under article 200. Similarly, you have president. So at the union level, it may be presented a bill which has been designed either as a private member bill or government member bill by cabinet. So it will be sent, it will be presented either into the Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha. Again, various kind of bill, bill like money bill can be presented only into the Lok Sabha. So again, we are not getting into the basics of the bill, we are just discussing. So this process, my logic was that this process is called legislation. As a legislature, as a member of parliament, as a member of legislative assembly, what you are doing is that your job, primary job, you already would be knowing that separation of power, the various component, what are the various component of the state. So you have this legislature, you have executive, and you have this judiciary, right? What is the role of this legislature? The primary role of legislature is to design the law, to get the law passed. What is the job of executive? So now we are coming into the difference that I told you, that you will have to understand the difference between legislation and execution. So once legislation has been passed, the job of legislature is over. Then thereafter the role will come of the executive. So what is the role of the executive? So executive is nothing, Karyapalika, in Hindi you call it Karyapalika, and the job of Karyapalika or the job of the executive is to getting things implemented. Whatever scheme, whatever law that has been passed, it will be the job. So recently you have Citizenship Amendment Act that was passed, wide controversial act, and recently the government has issued the statement that very soon we will be publishing it in government notification for its implementation. So implementation of that particular law that has been passed by the parliament or the union legislature, it will be the job of executive. And when I am saying executive, I am referring to the council of ministers, right? Council of ministers at the union level as well and the state level as well. So the job of executive or the council of ministers, that is in Indian format, council of ministers are considered as executive. In US if you go, president office is considered as executive, right? So that is the difference between the parliamentary system and the this presidential system, but again we are not getting there. So the job of executive primarily is to execute the things, right? So I hope you will have clarity by now what is the difference, what is the job of legislature, or what is this legislation and what is this execution. Execution is nothing, whatever provisions of the law that has been passed by the legislature, that will be implementation. So the implementation role or the process of implementation is called execution, right, or executive. That is the job of executive. So I hope you will have an understanding on that what is the, and this video particularly is going to be about that center state executive, what kind of executive relation, right? So at the central level as well, you have this union government. In union government, what you do have is council of minister. Similarly you have the state government. In the state government as well, you have this council of minister. So whatever law that has been, means basic, if I am not getting into the nitty gritty, so what is the job of this union council of minister and what is the job of the state council of minister? So see, if you remember when we were discussing this article 246, what is this article 246 that was talking about? If you have seen this first video on the center state legislative affair, you would remember what is this article 246. So article 246 was primarily dealing with legislative division, or in what all area. If you remember, we had said there that you have this list 1, list 2 and the concurrent list. So in list 2, list 1. So primarily this article 246 discusses about the legislative division between center state or union and the state. In what all area union will be making the law, or sorry, parliament will be making the law, and in what area or on what all subject state legislature is equipped to make laws. And this legislative power and the executive power is coextensive with each other. What is the meaning of this legislative power and the executive power is coextensive with each other? The word that I used was coextensive. So let me tell you what is this meaning of that legislative power and the executive power is coextensive with each other. So see, state legislature has made some law through their state assembly and the state legislative council. Similarly, union legislature, that is parliament, including Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, has made certain laws, passed certain laws, and that will be implemented, or the implementation responsibility of law that has been passed by the parliament, that responsibility relies on the shoulders of the central council of minister. You have, means council of minister, as I already told you, you have council of minister at the 2 level. So whatever law that has been passed by the state legislature, that will be implemented by the council of minister of that particular state, right? So Madhya Pradesh government, if it has passed certain laws, that will be implemented by Madhya Pradesh council of minister. If Bihar government has passed, or Bihar legislature's assembly has passed certain law, that implementation of that law will rely, or the responsibility of that law implementation on the ground will rely on the council of ministers of the Bihar. Similarly, if the parliament has passed certain law like Citizenship Amendment Act, right, so that will be implemented by the council of minister of this parliament. But in certain situations, see, I am just giving you right now, we will be delving into this particular chapter and we will be discussing these 3 articles, but I am just giving you an idea on that what is this center state executive relation or center state administrative relation. So, and that is why I told you that center this legislative power and the executive power is coextensive with each other. So, legislation that has been designed coextensive, legislation that has been designed by the parliament will be implemented by the council of ministers at the union level, legislation that has been designed by the state legislature that will be implemented by council of ministers at the state level. So, that was the meaning of center state or the legislative power of the center and state is coextensive with each other. So, that is the meaning. Now, see, although a general statement or the general logic dictates that whatever law that has been passed by the parliament that will be implemented by the Union Council of Ministers and similarly with the state legislature. Hey state, if you have passed certain act, then the implementation responsibility of that particular legislation will rely on your Council of Ministers, but that does not happen. There is no watertight compartment, compartmentalization between the executive relation. There may be certain situation where union government has been allowed that union government can delegate its executive power, its implementing power to the state government as well. If you want to see the example that it what all area union government. So, see, right now this Citizenship Amendment Act has been passed. Now, when it will come to the implementation, when it will be coming to the data collection that hey, with these people residing in your state, union might say, union government say CAA has been passed by the parliament. Now, the implementation responsibility lies with the Council of Ministers, that is government of the day currently, right. But government of the day sitting in Delhi does not is not properly equipped to handle the situation across the country. So, in these kind of situation, what parliament can do, sorry, not parliament, but the government at the union level can do that it can delegate certain executive power. Executive means what? Implementation. Implementation of what? Implementation of provisions of this act, right. So, although it was supposed to be, since parliament has passed this Citizenship Amendment Act, although logically, if you go by logically, it was supposed to be implemented or the operationalized by the union government or the Council of Ministers at the union level, but in certain situation for better capacity utilization, for better management, union government through the constitution has been equipped that it can ask states that hey state, I have to collect the data, but since you are more closer to the people, so can you collect the data on these points, can you deploy certain of your official, few of your official of this particular department for this particular, although it is my job, right, it was supposed to be my supposed to be done by me, means my government, that is union government, but can you look into it, can you deploy some of your people, and in addition, means in response to that deployment, the cost of that deployment will be borne by the union. So, this is what the center state executive relation is going to, the only aspect, the only one aspect of the center state executive relation that I talked in this particular example, but there are many states of the center state executive relation or the center state administrative relation. So, that we will be discussing in this particular video through these 3 articles. So, I hope you would, by now you already would have an idea that what kind of thing that we are going to delve into, right. If you have understood this example, then allow me to move to the next slide and discuss this article 256. So, first of all, I will be reading this article 256 and then I will be letting you know the essence. Why I could have directly told you the essence of this particular article 256, that is first article in center state administrative relation, but then you have to write means as well, and this kind of language I would expect that you will imbibe or ingest in your side. See, essence can be understood and that essence can be responded into the prelim questions, but when it comes to means, you have to write there and you have to write, not just write, you have to write there in the technical, using the technical word of that particular. If you are writing answers of the this geography, then you need to have the dictionary of the geography. If you are writing answers of the science and technology, you need to have the kind of dictionary that science and tech requires. Similarly, if you are writing answers of the polity or the governance, that kind of vocabulary, and that kind of vocabulary will not come to you if you do not read properly, if you do not understand, and then if you do not write into the mock kind of test, right. So, first of all, allow me to read this article 256 and then I will explain you what is this article 256 reading. So, the executive power of every state, the executive power of every state shall be so exercised, executive power of the state को कुछ इस तरह से exercise करना है या होना चाहिए as to ensure compliance with the laws made. So, let us, although this article 256 has already been broken into two parts, this is the first part and this is second part. Let us break this first part as well into the two parts. Let us read it again for your better understanding. The executive power of every state shall be so exercised as to ensure compliance with the laws made by the parliament. Let us stop there. So, what is the meaning of this first part? So, the meaning of the first part is that whatever law that has been made by the parliament, if there is law, so law like CA, Citizenship Amendment Act, that CA is what? CA is a law, right? That is an amendment in the Citizenship Amendment Act or Citizenship Act 1955, right? You already would be knowing this Citizenship Act 1955, and there have been multiple amendment, and the last recent amendment was this CAA 2019, and the controversial CAA Citizenship Amendment, but since it has been passed by the parliament, we will have to respect it. So, any law that what is this first part talking about? So, first part is talking about that any law that has been passed by the parliament, it will be the duty or the obligation. If you want to use a mild word, obligation would be mild word. If you want to use a strong word, a strong word would be the duty. So, it will be the duty of the state government, the executive. Whenever it is talking about the executive power, it is not talking about the state legislature, executive power of the state. It is not talking about the state legislature, but it is talking about the council of minister of that state or the government of that particular state. So, state, if I tell you now the essence is that state government shall not be doing anything. Listen me carefully. The meaning of this first part of article 256 is that state government shall not be doing anything or in any manner that may hinder, or it should be exercised, the power of the state government, or the state government shall be exercising its power in such a manner that it does ensure compliance with the laws made by the parliament or any existing law which applies in that particular state. So, right now the Citizenship Amendment Act that parliament has passed, it is applicable across India. So, it will be the duty of every state government that it does exercise its power in such a manner that it does not hamper or it does not hinder the operationalization of Citizenship Amendment Act. Right now, you might argue that hey, various state, I remember that Kerala had passed the resolution, many of the Congress or the opposition rule had said that we will not allow the implementation or we will not support any of the acts, like although NPR, exercise of NPR, and the other exercise was NRC, right. So, these exercises has not been given the statute backing by the parliament. Means what is the meaning of statute backing? The meaning of statute backing is that for the implementation or for these job NPR and NRC, no parliamentary law has been passed, unlike Citizenship Amendment Act, for which parliament has already passed. So, any of the state, if parliament has passed any act, although state has every power, that if it does not agree, if any of the state, that is part, state is what ultimately union and state are part of our federal scheme of things. So, if any of the federating unit, that is either state or union, does not agree with each other, if there is any conflict, although our constitution is very clear on, especially on this citizenship, citizenship is something that lies into the domain of the list one, that is the union or that is the parliament. So, parliament can legislate and can do anything when it comes to citizenship amendment or any of the act that has to be passed for the citizenship. But then if any of the federating unit, despite this clear cut guidelines mentioned into the Indian constitution, if the state, any of the state does have any issue, they can very well approach Supreme Court, they can very well approach Supreme Court only, right, because Supreme Court does have sole jurisdiction to see into these issues between state and union. But the point is, from this article 256, that state government cannot say that, hey, we are not going to implement this particular law that you have passed, until and unless Supreme Court has really or substantially raised any kind of objection. Any of the state cannot do any or cannot declare such statement that we are not going to implement. No, that's unconstitutional. That can be a political statement from maybe a chief minister, although from a chief minister or any of the person who is holding cabinet post or the ministerial berth, it does not behove well from that kind of person or that person who is holding such post to issue such kind of statement, because these are something, either you go and amend the constitution and then whatever you have to speak, then speak about it, either you go to the Supreme Court, and unless Supreme Court has delivered the judgment, as a politician you are free to issue any kind of statement, right. You already would have seen what kind of rubbish statements sometimes at times are issued by many of the politicians. Mindless application of this mind happens, but that can be done at the political rallies, but it should not, these kind of statement is not expected from anyone who is part of the government. They cannot say any person part of the government, although at the risk of that, oh, union government kya kar legi, already politically ghiri hui hai. So on that risk you can say, but then constitutionally, if you follow, if you are following, if you have taken the oath of the constitution, these kind of statements, especially unless the constitution has been amended, these kind of things does not behave well on you. But that is just an explanation. These things has not been written in through the constitution. This is just my observation. So executive power of every state shall be so exercised to ensure compliance with the laws made by the parliament and any existing law which applies into that state. So the first part of this particular article, that is article 256, is done. Now the second part. So see, here it has been written that the state government shall not be doing any such thing. What is the second part? So the second part reads that the executive power of the union shall extend. So here it is talking about the union. So a law has been made, right? Parliament has made this law, Citizenship Amendment Act. Now whose job? It should be enforced, right? So the enforcement, the job of the enforcement will belong to the union government. So it will be the duty, the executive power of the union shall extend to giving, extend to giving such direction to the state as may appear to the government of India to be necessary for that purpose. Let me tell you again the essence. So Citizenship Amendment Act has been passed by using this provision mentioned into the article 245, because under article 245 that parliament does have power that whatever list whatever item that has been contained into the list, on that parliament will be passing the law. Now it will be the job of this union government that it will be exercising its executive authority over the state if they feel so, that yes, sitting in Delhi it is not going to be the easy job, so they can issue the direction to the state that, hey, state government, do this. So the executive, let us understand it again, the executive power of the union, that is union government, shall extend to giving such direction to the state or states as may appear to the government of India to the necessary for that purpose, for the implementation or for the operationalization of that law that has been passed by the parliament. I hope you will have clarity on this article 256. Now we are moving to the next slide, and next slide discusses about, see, one more information that I would like to give you, and that information is that, see, if any of the state does refuse, like Kerala passed the resolution in their state assembly that we are not, but remember that is just a resolution, that is just their opinion that this is violative, Citizenship Amendment Act is violative of right to equality, it is against the, but that is just their blame. It does not takes away the fact that over the citizenship, just a moment, it does not take away their protest or their resolution passed by any of the state legislature does not take away the fact that over the citizenship, right, this union parliament is equipped to pass the law. That does not, you can, as I already told you, that as a state, if you have any kind of conflict, then you are free to go to the Supreme Court for that resolution. But once law has been passed by the parliament for anything that is contained into the list 1, you cannot say that we are not going to implement. But if any state vehemently says that no, we are not, we do not follow the constitution, we are not going to agree to such law that has been passed by the parliament, let other state implement it, but we are not going to implement it. For the political, of course, so these things happen, or these kind of statement or these kind of resolution generally comes for the political consumption or the political, to make a political statement. Either you go, as I already told you, either you go to the Supreme Court or get the constitution amended, but unless Supreme Court has delivered the judgment or a constitution has been amended, you cannot, as a state, you cannot do so. But if any state is vehement, it is hell-bent that no, we are not going to implement it, we will not allow the CBI to enter into our state, we are not going to allow any of the union government, let alone this union government seeking any kind of support from us, but we will not allow, even if union government is sending some official for the enforcement to collect any kind of data for the citizenship, for the implementation of citizenship, we will not allow them. So in these kind of situation, that will be considered as, that will be construed as constitutional breakdown in that particular. You are not following the directives, or you are not following the spirit of the constitution, because the spirit of the constitution says this, that in list 1, if there is anything that has been mentioned into the list 1, parliament is equipped to deal with that law, but you are not allowing, means as a state you are not following, you are just trying to impose your own political leaning on the law that has been passed or on something that has been said into the constitution. In that case, if you are not following, any state is behaving adamantly and they are saying no, we are not going to respect these kind of things. So in these kind of circumstances, you will find that state union government does have power, that it can go and it can say that hey, there has been a constitutional breakdown in this particular state and we have the power, or the constitution has given the power to the union that they can go and implement, or they can invoke the article 356. Right, 365 is nothing, 365 actually gives a ground for the imposition of article 356. So 356, that is presidential rule in that particular state, can be imposed, right. Resolution against CAA, president rule can be imposed. Yes, means resolution, although Kerala had passed and various states had passed the resolution, but since there is no notification for the enforcement, notification for the enforcement is going to come now. Now after the enforcement, if the executive, that is council of minister, is issuing any kind of direction to various state that has passed these kind of resolution, and then if they are saying, see, this resolution, as I already told you, is nothing more than a political statement, but after the notification for the operationalization, even today this broad notification would have been passed, but the exact guideline for the implementation, that how exactly the CAA that was passed previous year by the parliament has not been ruled out, has not been spelled out, right. So that will be spelled out very soon by the government order, and once that GO has been, government order has been issued, thereafter if any state says, any state government says that no, we are not going to follow this direction by the union government, in that case it will be lawful on the part of the union government to invoke this article 356, citing the reason of article 365, and in this article 365 it has been clearly written that if there has been any constitutional breakdown in the state, then it will be lawful, it will be constitutional for the union government to impose or to invoke the provisions of this article 356. I hope you would already have an idea on this president rule, national emergency and others. So this is the imposition. If you want to see the directions of what is this article 256 or into the pictorial format, so you can see this laws made by the parliament, if it has to be implemented by the state government, it has to be implemented into the state government, then union government, that is union council of ministers, writ will run over for the implementation of that particular law that has been passed by the parliament. The writ of, or the orders of the union government will run Now you might ask the question that when you are saying that union government writ may run, so what about the state legislature's respect? What about the respect of the state government? In that case, see, only this writ of the executive at the union level or the council of ministers at the union level passes or is pressed upon the state government only into the case of for the implementation of law that has been passed by the parliament, not by the state legislature. So I hope the article 256 you will have clarity on. Now we are moving to next article and article 257. So article 257, if you can see on the screen, it talks about control of union over the state in certain cases. So first of all, let us read this article 257 and thereafter we will be understanding the essence of this article 257. So the reading is that the executive power of every state shall be exercised as not to impede or prejudice. So the first line is almost going to be same that we had studied in article 257. The answer is no, it is not going to be same. The second part of the first line of that article 257 is going to be different. The executive power of every state shall be exercised as not to impede or prejudice to the exercise of executive power of the union. In article 256, it had read that the executive power of every state shall be exercised in such a manner that it is in compliance with the laws made by the parliament. So there it was talking about the conflict, any possibility of conflict that may arise between the laws made by the parliament and the executive exercise of executive power of the state government. So there parliament and the executive power of the state government, here it is talking about the conflict between the possibility of conflict, and here it is trying to this constitutional provision is trying to mitigate the chances of conflict between the exercise of executive power of the state council of minister and the exercise of executive power of the union council of minister. Now let us try to understand that why there can be, through an example, let us try to understand that at what occasion there may be or there are chances of conflict between the executive power, the exercise of executive power of the state government and of the exercise of executive power of the union government. Because when we were studying this article 246, in article 246 we had said that whatever law that will be passed by the parliament into the list 1, that will be implemented, or the execution, logically if we go by, logically it should be that parliament, if parliament has passed the law, the execution shall be done by the council of minister of the union, and if state has passed the law, then the execution of the state law or the implementation of the state law shall be done by the council of minister at the state level, right? So in this area, in this particular law, the union government will have power, and for the implementation of this particular law, the state government or the state council of minister will have executive power. So why there is a conflict, and why this constitution is constitutional provision mentioned in article 257 is trying to mitigate that conflict. So let us try to understand that what can be situation. So let us take again the example of Citizenship Amendment Act. So we already know that for political reasons many of the state has already passed the resolution. Now sensing that many of the state, union is sensing that many of the state may not cooperate, although constitutionally they are binded, means Supreme Court, if they are going to the Supreme Court, most likely Supreme Court also say that hey, we are not going to invade into the policy areas, we are not going to direct union government to pass so and so law or not to pass so and so law, because that is the domain of the legislature. So we are not going. So suppose Supreme Court takes sides with, not sides, Supreme Court finds that Citizenship Amendment Act that has been passed by the parliament, that is not null and void, and there is no necessity of amendment, it should be implemented. Now in that case, again for the political reason, certain state government, although not constitutionally but internally, they can ask their state government employee that hey, when there will be direction by the central government, what you can do is that you do not properly implement the provisions of this particular law. But union government, even though it is sensing that the particular state government is not cooperating, but respecting federal principle, it is, although it is union government is empowered to go for this implementation or imposition of this 356, but respecting this federal system, it is not implementing. So in that situation, union government, what middle way union government can take is, although it does have this power, but the middle path that the union government might take is that it may say that rather than taking state government or state official support for this data collection for the NRC, NPR or Citizenship Amendment Act, Rather, let me deploy central government official for these kind of data collection. Now, state government might not, again in this kind of activity, state government I am saying, I am not saying state legislature. So, state government again may be not directly but indirectly interfere. So, there may be in these kind of situation, there is possibility. I have just cited one example to let you know that what can be instance where there may be chances of conflict between the executive power of the union and executive power of the, I hope you are understanding what is the executive power, right? Executive power is not nothing but implementation of a law that has been here. So, here in this example we are talking about the implementation of Citizenship Amendment Act that has been passed by your parliament, right. So, here in this example I have showed you that there are chances that there may be any kind of conflict. So, let me read it again. The executive power of every state shall be so exercised as not to impede or prejudice the exercise of executive power of the union. So, that was the first part of Article 257. Article 257 actually does have two clauses. The first clause is this and the second clause we will be studying in the next slide. So, first clause I have divided into two parts. The first part we already have studied. The second part, the executive power of the union shall extend to giving such direction to the state as may appear. So, this point is going to be very same that we have studied into Article 256. So, union government does have power that it can give executive direction to the state government as well. And there is this sanction, if the state government is creating any kind of conflict into the exercise of executive power of the union, in that case this union government does have power that again it can invoke this Article 356, that is precedent rule. I hope you know the what is this Article 365 and Article 356. For the invocation of emergency, precedent emergency into the state, one ground has been mentioned into Article 356 that talks about that in case of constitutional machinery breakdown into the state, union government does have power that it can invoke, it can impose this Article 356. So, that was the explanation of this first provision of or the first clause of Article 257. Now, we are discussing the second provision of this Article 257. What is the second provision? So, second provision reads that the executive power of union shall also extend to giving direction to the state. So, executive power of the union, what is the meaning of executive power of the union? That is union government. So, union government does have power that it can issue direction to the state government. What kind of direction and what all matters? So, executive, let me reiterate again. So, union government does have power that it can issue the direction to the state for the maintenance and construction. For the maintenance and construction of what? So, for the maintenance and construction of this national asset. What could be the categorized as national assets? So, any of the military installation that is supposed to be constructed, or if it has been constructed, then for the maintenance. So, any kind of military installation, any kind of naval installation, any kind of NHA, national highway, if it is being constructed, then for security, if union government does want state support, so state government will have to extend the support on the direction being made by the union government. Then what are the other matters on which executive or union government can issue executive order to the state government? So, for any kind of telecom installation, that is, so BSNL suppose is installing any kind of towers in any of the state, and now there is any kind of security threat, then this union government can ask that, hey, my personnel or this BSNL support, please support this BSNL personnel. So, in these kind of any kind of national waterway, so for their construction or their maintenance as well, the responsibility can be assigned to the state government. Union government can assign this responsibility of maintenance of any asset that is described as national asset, and what kind of things can be categorized as national asset we already have discussed. So, national highways, this telecom towers, then you have these railways and any kind of military installation. So, these kind of national waterways as well, these kind of things can be described as national asset, and for those national assets, union government does have power that it can issue direction to the state government for the construction and maintenance, both, right? So executive power of the union shall also extend to giving direction to the state as construction and maintenance of means of communication it is. So this is also means of communication, this is also means of communication, this is also means of communication, and what you call this national waterway can also be categorized as means of communication, right? So where for their construction and maintenance both. However, expenditure on all these construction or maintenance of means of communication shall be borne by the union government, but then just support kind of thing for that construction. If union government wants to seek, then it can seek from the state government. Again, if state government says no, we are not going to provide any kind of support in these kind of implementation or these kind of construction, again what power does have this union government does have? So again the sanction is this article 365, means 356 can be imposed, right? So I hope you will have clarity on this article 257 as well. What is this article 258? So article 258, so article 258 actually the heading there should have been, when you will get PPT you will get this heading as well. So article 258 actually talks about delegation of executive power. What is this delegation of executive power? So see, we already, this point I am repeatedly highlighting. What is the point that I am repeatedly highlighting? So I already talked about that Parliament has made the law, then Council of Ministers at the union level will be implementing. State government has made any law, then the Council of Ministers at the state level will be implementing. Means the executive power of the Council of Ministers at the state level will be coextensive with the legislative power of the state legislature. Similarly, executive power of the Council of Ministers at the union level will be coextensive with the legislative power of the Parliament. That point you will have clarity on. Now, in certain situation, it is allowed that union government can ask that, hey, although this execution should or was supposed to be done by me, that is union government, since Parliament has made this law, but can you look into it? I am not equipped enough right now, or I do not have capacity, or I am right now busy, my officials are busy. So certain executive function, although that was supposed to be performed by the union government, because the law in that sense had been passed by the Parliament, but Constitution has given this provision that with the consent. So in this case, suppose a law that has been passed, that was supposed to be implemented by the union government, and if union government want that state government, certain functions of that particular law shall be implemented or shall be looked in by the state government, in that case what president can do. So here the president's role will come. So president can, with the consent of governor of that particular state. So the key point is that president, with consent of governor of that state, can delegate these functions that was supposed to be performed by the Council of Ministers at the union level to the Council of Ministers at the state level. I hope you will have clarity on. Let me repeat it again. So president, a function that was supposed to be performed by the Union Council of Ministers, president with permission or with consent of the governor of that particular state. So suppose citizen, again I am taking example of Citizenship Amendment Act itself. The provision is supposed to be implemented by the Union Council of Ministers, but in MP, but in Rajasthan, but in Bihar, right? In all these state, if union government want to take for the implementation of Citizenship Amendment Act, if union government wants to take support of the state government, right? So state, with the permission of the governor of these particular states, president with the previous consent or president with the consent of the governor of these states can transfer the executive function of the Union Council of Ministers in regards to CAA to the Council of Ministers of these states or all the state. I hope you will have clarity. Now, the other way is also allowed. If a state government want to cede certain executive function, right, so that can also be done, but in this case governor will have to take initiative and governor will have to have consent of the president at the union level, and if president does agree, in that case Council of Ministers function at the state level will be transferred to the Council of Ministers at the union level. So this bidirectional delegation of executive power is very much possible. Just you have to understand the sequence, that if Union Council of Ministers want to delegate certain executive function, then in that case president will have to obtain the consent of the concerned state government. Similarly, the vice versa, governor will have to obtain the permission or consent from the president. So, that point you will have clarity. Now, there is second situation. In that second situation, this previous consent of the governor is not necessary. If Union Council of Minister wants to delegate, here in this particular case, if Union Council of Minister or State Council of Minister wants to delegate their executive authority to each other, then the head of state's permission was necessary, right. So, in this case, governor's prior permission was or consent was necessary. In this case, president's permission was necessary, but there is one case in which these governors or president's prior consent or consent is not necessary. So, what is that case? So, if that kind of delegation does happen by the parliament, so here if the delegation of the executive authority that was implemented, a law was passed by the parliament, and in the same law a provision was made that this particular law will be implemented not by the executive, although because parliament has passed the law, it should ideally it should be supposed to be implemented by the Union Council of Ministers, but in the same law if the parliament mentions or on a later stage, for suppose for 2 years Union Council of Ministers implement that particular law, but 2 years down the line if parliament amends and parliament does have power that it can transfer the executive power, the implementation power to the state government. So, in this case governor's prior permission is not needed or governor's consent is not needed, right. Parliament can do it unilaterally without seeking governor's consent, right. Into the previous case, when president was doing this transfer of or the delegation of the executive power, he or she was supposed to take the permission from the governor, right, or the governor if he or she wanted to cede certain executive power to the union government, in that case he or she needed to have consent of the president. But here if the parliament is doing something, in this case what you call this prior permission or the consent rather is not necessary. But here in this particular case the other way is not allowed. The state legislature cannot do this. State legislature, if they want, any of the assembly, if they want that certain executive power of the law made by a state legislature, if they want to transfer the executive function or the implementation functions to the union government, that is not possible. So, here in this particular case, let me again show you the difference, that here in this particular case when there was, what is this in this article 250, what we talked about. So, we talked about delegation, just a moment, delegation of executive power, right, executive power of whom? So, executive power of union to the state government or the state government to the union government, forget this, bidirectional. So, here in this part when governor was transferring the executive power of the state to the union government, then he or she needed to take the prior permission of the president. Here again if president was transferring union government's executive power, then the prior permission of what you call governor was necessary, right. So, prior permission, but if parliament is doing this delegation of the executive power, then if parliament is doing this delegation of the executive power, in that case prior permission or the consent, not prior permission, but the consent of the governor or president is not necessary, right. And similar, the other way is not allowed. The state legislature cannot direct or cannot transfer any of the executive power to the union government. So, I hope article 256, 257 and 258 you will have clarity on, and these are the 3 articles that we were supposed to discuss. We will not be discussing article 259 because 259 has already been repealed. Article 260, I already told you that this deals with a foreign jurisdiction, so that again is not related with the administrative power. Then you have this 261 that was dealing with the full faith credit clause, 262 and 263 interstate council and interstate water dispute. We already have discussed in interstate council. So, with this we are wrapping up this particular lecture on union state administrative power or administrative relation. We'll be back with the next lecture on union state financial relation. There would be again this article kind of 275 to 293, but not all the articles that we'll be discussing, only those articles which are necessary from the exam point of view, from the pre or mains, that we'll be discussing. So there may be two videos. In the third video we'll be discussing center state financial relation, and in the fourth video we'll be discussing this trends, various kind of trends, means after independence, post independence, what other way or what are the different phases that center state relation has been pre 1967, after 1967, then post 1990. So these phases will be dividing, and then we'll be studying the center state relation. So I hope we are wrapping up this particular lecture right now. We'll be back in next lecture. Till then, bye bye.